So, you ladies have had it pretty rough lately. And, I concede that it's been a lot of fun. But all good things must come to a middle, because we're certainly not at the end. And I'm going to take this opportunity to hit the middle, right? Now, I'm quite interested to see how you guys are going to react to this. It's a shame that many of the people that now dislike me have left, because they're going to miss out on this. And that's a really interesting point too. But yeah, that's for another video. Anyways. But I've chosen to today, I'm going to attack a man. Language everybody likes to hear. I'm going to attack this man. Right? Don't get afraid, men. I am not going to do a wide overarching critique of us as a gender. The one thing that I would say that is our biggest problem is the peacock syndrome. The competitiveness that we have. It's oftentimes just fucking stupid. But it's what makes us great. Competitiveness can drive you. Competitiveness is a thing that you... It's something it's the brass ring. You're always reaching straight out for it. You know, it's a focus. It's a goal. It's something you hope to achieve. The sickness of women, it's just fucking that. You're just sick, and you just gotta stop being sick. Doesn't do you any good. It only causes harm. There is no benefit to it. But men take our competitiveness to the point where it's damaging as fuck. It's really the only critique that I have about men. Our competitiveness, whenever that becomes a sickness to us, it's the same thing. You lose sight of the goal at that point, and it becomes about the means to that end, and what means you're willing to go to reach that end. No, that's when it just is nothing but bad for us. That's a video for another time too. But I'm gonna attack one specific man in specific, and that is me. I'm doing this so that maybe it'll give you the illusion of fair play, because it's not really. I'm just telling you about myself. This isn't really a soft spot with me. It's one that I've come to accept. But at one time it was a soft spot. Honestly, I could say that this is probably my last soft spot. I can't think of any others. I honestly can't. Like, he teased my mom, I don't care. Like, I realize what that means. It means absolutely nothing. Like, you know, I don't fucking... I can't think of anything that anybody can really poke at me with that would really actually upset me. I'm sure there's something. There's always something. But I can't think of what it would be. So it would have to be something that would really have to hit me unawares, and I'm not saying that it's impossible for that to happen. It's absolutely possible for that to happen. But yeah, this is like kind of the last thing that, if it was brought up to me in this manner, I would have probably gotten upset. It would have most certainly thrown me into a depression. Absolutely. But now I can watch it and be like, man, it's me. It's what it is. So, we'll take this little delve into my psyche, and let's just have fun with it, shall we? Let's enjoy ourselves. When we begin to take ourselves too seriously, it's when that sickness takes over. You're a joke. At the end of the day, we are all the great cosmic joke. Because no matter what you do, no matter what you say, sooner or later, you're going to die. And shortly after that, you will be forgotten. And it won't make a goddamn of a difference anyways. Right? So we have to look at ourselves with a wee bit of levity. Because otherwise, what in the fuck is the point? It's fun to laugh. And it's fun to laugh along with people. And I've always said, as soon as they start laughing at you, fuck them, laugh along.
This is the Peter Pan story, roughly speaking. Peter Pan is this magical boy.
And I also am a magical boy.
Pan is the god of everything, roughly speaking, right? And so it's not an accident that he has the name Pan.
And it is not an accident that I identify so much with this.
And he's the boy that won't grow up. And he's magical. Well, that's because children are magical. They can be anything. They're nothing but potential. And Peter Pan doesn't want to give that up. Why? Well, he's got some adults around him, but the main adult is Captain Hook. Well, who the hell wants to grow up to be Captain Hook?
Fuck that. He's got to go to work. Fuck that.
First of all, you've got a hook. Second, you're a tyrant. And third, you're chased by the dragon of chaos with a clock in its stomach. Right? The crocodile. It's already got a piece of you. Well, that's what happens when you get older. Time has already got a piece of you. And eventually, it's got a taste for you. And eventually, it's going to eat you. And so Hook is so traumatized by that he can't help but be a tyrant. And then Peter Pan looks at traumatized Hook and says, well, no, I'm not sacrificing my childhood for that. So that's fine, except he ends up king of the Lost Boys. In Neverland, well, Neverland doesn't exist, and who the hell wants to be king of the Lost Boys? And he also sacrifices the possibility that he'll have a real relationship with a woman, because that's Wendy, right? And she's kind of conservative, middle-class, London-dwelling girl. She wants to grow up and have kids and have a life. She accepts her mortality. She accepts her maturity. Peter Pan has to content himself with Tinkerbell. She doesn't even exist. She's like the fairy of porn. She doesn't exist. She's the substitute for the real thing.
In every way. Matches the way that I treat my personal life. In every way it matches. In every way. Especially Tinkerbell. She's in my closet.
And so, but the dichotomy that you're talking about is very tricky, because there's a sacrificial element in maturation, right? You have to sacrifice the pluripotentiality of childhood for the actuality of a frame. And the question is, well, why would you do that? Well, one reason is it happens to you whether you do it or not. You can either choose your damn limitation, or you can let it take you unaware when you're 30, or even worse, when you're 40. And then that is not a happy day. And I see people like this, and I think it's more and more common in our culture, because people can put off maturity without suffering an immediate penalty. But all that happens is the penalty accrues, And then when it finally hits, it just wallops you, because when you're 25, you can be an idiot. It's no problem. Even when you're out in a job search, it's like, well, you don't have any experience and you're kind of clueless. It's, yeah, you're young, you know, it's no problem. That's what young people are like, but they're full of potential. Okay, well, now you're the same person at 30. It's like people aren't so thrilled about you at that point. It's like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 10 years? Well, I'm just as clueless as I was when I was 22. It's, yeah, but you're not 22. You're an old infant, right? And that's an ugly thing, an old infant.
Now, I kind of lucked out of this. I'm a pragmatist. And I saw my friends starting their careers and getting married and having kids, things of that nature. And as that was going on, I was working my, I guess, second factory job, right? And I had just quit my job. Well, I had just gotten fired from the costume shop. And before that, I worked at, I was the dishwasher at the local bar and grill. Before that, I was pizza dude. Goes on and on. I was a stock boy at fucking Office Max. I worked at McDonald's. I've done it all, right? With factory work, I kind of took to. There was a realistic aspect to it. There wasn't an expectation for you to always be a certain way. And it was more free, I think. So I kind of took to it. I say my second factory job because the first factory job I had, man, I was 19, 18, maybe. Something like I had just gotten out of school. And I wasn't ready at that point for it. So, but when I was in my early to mid 20s, it was very different. And like I said, I started to see all of my friends growing up, maturing, and becoming adults. And I didn't want to do that. But I also saw that the way that I was going was not sustainable. So I even though every couple of years I really wanted to quit, I just stuck with the factory job. And I learned so many skills there that I've been able to take with me into my new job. That has made me, a valuable employee to them. And so I kind of dodged the darker aspect of what he's talking about here. That if you're in your 20s and you're bouncing around from job to job, maybe lasting there a year if you're really lucky, but for the most part, not that long. Like if you're still doing that when you're in your 30s, and oh my God, if you're still doing that when you're in your 40s, oh, that would be a fucking nightmare. But I will still suffer some of those consequences.
So, part of the reason you choose your damn sacrifice, because the sacrifice is inevitable, but at least you get to choose it. And then there's something that's even more complex than that in some sense, is that the problem with being a child is that all you are is potential, and it's really low resolution. You could be anything, but you're not anything. So then you go and you adopt an apprenticeship, roughly speaking, and then at least you become something. And when you're something, that makes the world open up to you again. Like if you're a really good plumber, then you end up being far more than a plumber, right? You end up being a good employer. Not that plumbers, I'm not putting plumbers down. It's like more power to plumbers. They've saved more lives than doctors. So, hygiene, right? So, if you're a really good plumber, well then you have some employees, you run a business, you train some other people, you enlarge their lives, you're kind of a pillar of the community, you have your family. Once you pass through that narrow training period, which narrows you and constricts you and develops you at the same time, then you can come out the other end with a bunch of new possibility at hand.
Yeah, that's rough. That's a tough road to hoe. Like, it is a sacrificing of your invincibility. When you're a child, you think you're invincible. Nothing can touch you. You always land on your feet. And you get to a point where that part of your brain turns on where you begin to rationalize out your future possibilities, and consequences start to weigh heavily on your mind. Once you hit that point, you either come to grips with that or you don't. And the people that come to grips with it are the people that were like me, and that stick with that job because that job may suck, but the more you learn in that job, the more you use that job as a stepping stone, possibilities, like he said, begin to open up for you in the future. The people that don't come to grips with that and just think that they can continue to do that shit forever, you can't. Doesn't work. It isn't sustainable. Sooner or later, you have to improve your station in life. Sooner or later, you have to come to grips with the realization that you are not invincible and that you may not always land on your feet.
And Jung talked about that. He thought that the proper path of development in the last half of life was to rediscover the child that you left behind as you were apprenticing. And so then you get to be something and regain that potential at the same time. Very, very smart. Well, he was very, very smart. So that's very wise thing to know.
Some people might say that this is equally as smart or maybe even smarter. But I chose to put the child through the apprenticeship. I just never gave up the child. I continued to be the child in my spare time. I figured that was what my free time was for. So I continued to be the child every second of my free time. But when I was at work, I worked, There was a fragmentation in my maturation process there. In one stage of my life, I became an adult, and I did adult shit. And then in the other aspect of my life, I didn't.
So, yep. Sacrifice. We'll talk more about that too. You get to pick your damn sacrifice. That's all. You don't get to not make one. You're sacrificial whether you want to be or not. That's a good thing to know as well. So even though it's rather, it's a rough thing to figure out.
It was a tough decision. Ultimately, to decide that my sacrifice was going to be the trials and rewards of having a family. I have no desire for it. I'm not the type of person I think that's suited to that. Everybody says, someday you're going to meet some girl. No, it ain't going to fucking happen. Because you're all sick and you all fucking annoy me at some point, and I can't fucking stand any one of you. And and that's great if we're friends. I could be annoyed by my friends, and that doesn't bother me. I don't have to sleep next to you. I don't have to fucking pretend that I like you. I can tell you you're being an asshole and not talk to you for a while until you say, okay, I'll be an asshole, and then fucking we'll go again. I'm a very good friend, and I like sex. I like to think that I'm a very good lover, but I'm not a good boyfriend because I don't actually have infinite patience. Sooner or later I get annoyed, and when I get annoyed I start thinking to myself, my life could use one less annoyance. And there's where that decision gets made. I don't like a lot of problems. I like to avoid problems wherever possible. And I don't get along with people very often on a continuous basis. And the only time I ever have gotten along with anybody on a continuous basis is really just the Dennis. Like, when I lived with Dennis, you know, I always said if I was gay and a chubby chaser, I'd be all over Dennis. But I am not that. But yeah, like, me and Dennis just clicked. We're you know, I've always said that if you told me tomorrow that that man was my brother, we were separated at birth, I'd completely believe it. We just get along so well together. And when I lived with him, there wasn't an issue. But there was an issue with every other person I ever lived with. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a rare thing when you can find your soulmate and you just pray to God she's a girl, but sometimes she's not. So, you know, whatever. It is what it is. But I accepted the fact that the possibility of me finding that type of rare person a second time, but in an even more perfect form, yeah, that's just statistically, that is, I'd rather win the lottery and just buy a fucking whore. You know, like, the options there are so, man. that is a quadrillion to fucking 1 odds that is gonna happen. But you know, I'm open to the possibilities. I'm just realistic about them as well. But yeah, it's a tough sacrifice. To think that, like, because, you know, I'm kind of injured right now, and to not have somebody else to help me through, that's rough. But that was also kind of part and parcel with the whole doing YouTube thing, because you guys will ooh and ah and oh, I feel so bad for you, and that'll make me feel just as good. But you can't, like, fucking help me with shit. Like, when I decided that the fucking couch had to be split up and go, that was a rough time. Moving the fucking couch out of here, unscrewing it and all that shit, and because, you know, my fucking hand was numb and my arm was fucking killing me. But it was shit I needed to do. And, you know, as I was doing it, I contemplated future me going, okay, now I'm 60 and I'm still alone. And here's this. And then I was kind of like, yeah, well, I'll just pay somebody else to do it. I'll find some kid to fucking do it. You know, like, yeah, you know, that was kind of where I finally landed with it, how I rationalized it out. But, you know, it is a thing that you just kind of go, that sucks that I'm not going to have that convenience. But at the same time, I'm also not going to have that, you know, other side of it. And I'm fine with that. Because honestly, like, people always say, well, I hope someday you find a girl that you can get together with. And it's like, fuck you. Like, I think back to the worst times in my life, and all of them involved me and my girlfriend. Whatever iteration of her it was. The worst times of my life. And when I think back to some of the best times of my life, I was single and happy as fuck. So, you know, I kind of began to look at the little social experiment that I had run on myself unknowingly for 30 years or so or whatever. And I came to the uncomfortable conclusion. It just isn't going to fucking happen. The possibility of it is astronomical. So I came to accept it. And thus, I get to continue to be the child when I wish, and compartmentalize out the adult whenever I fucking feel like it. But yeah, That's me in a nutshell. The uncomfortable truth that I've fully come to accept. So, you can think of it what you will. You can look at it however you want. Say whatever you want about me. But at the end of the day, I'm still happy. So, yeah, there are times when I consider it, and I just, it is sad when it all comes down to it, but it's not as annoying as being with a woman. I'll take depression over nagging every time. This channel is sponsored by NaturalHealthyCBD.com. Go there for all your CBD pain relief product needs and use code EGOCAST10 for 10% off your purchase.